She thought it was a mission, not a royal wedding, so she wore battle armor. Her boots, heavy but reinforced, made solid prints on the deck of the transport ship as she checked her equipment one last time. For months, she had trained for this mission, running through drills and simulations for every possible scenario. Diplomatic missions could be dangerous, especially when alien cultures were involved. She didn't want to take any chances. "Are you sure you need all that armor, Captain?" Lieutenant Kira asked, hovering near the transport controls. She wore the standard ceremonial uniform of the Human Space Federation, elegant and simple, entirely unarmed. "You look a little overprepared." Ilara's visor reflected the soft lights of the ship. "Overprepared? Kira, we don't know what we'll face on Novara Prime. This is a first contact negotiation with the Ilarians. They have a reputation for extreme caution and even greater pride. If something goes wrong, I don't want to be caught flat-footed." Kira sighed but did not argue further. She had learned over the years that Ilara's instincts were usually correct. And if nothing else, the captain's armor certainly made her look commanding. The ship's autopilot engaged, carrying them across the star system toward the gleaming blue and gold world below. Clouds swirled around enormous floating cities suspended in the atmosphere, their spires glinting in the light of the system's twin suns. It was a breathtaking sight, a world that was as alien as it was beautiful. As the transport descended, Ilara ran through her mental checklist. Communication devices, check. Defensive systems, check. Strategic protocols, check. Everything seemed in order, but one nagging thought troubled her. Why had the mission briefing been so vague? Critical diplomatic mission was all she had been told. Nothing about a wedding, nothing about celebration, ceremonies, or glittering alien gowns. The transport's landing pad hummed under their weight as the ship touched down. Stepping out, Ilara's heavy boots made her presence immediately known. Her polished armor reflected sunlight, casting dazzling reflections across the polished surface of the platform. Kira followed behind her, moving carefully in her uniform. They were met by a group of Ilarian attendants. They were tall, elegant, and dressed in flowing robes of deep blues and golds. Their skin shimmered faintly, as though dusted with starlight, and their eyes held the soft luminescence of moons. They bowed gracefully, their hands extended in greeting. Ilara instinctively mirrored the bow, but her armor made her movements stiff and mechanical. She ended up stumbling slightly, catching herself with a hand on her knee plate. The attendants paused, unsure if this was part of the ritual. "You honor us, Captain Voss," one of the Ilarians said, voice like liquid crystal. "Your presence at the royal ceremony is unexpected but not unwelcome." Ilara froze. Ceremony, royal, wedding. The words did not compute. She had not been briefed about a wedding. "A ceremony?" she asked carefully. "Mission, diplomatic mission, yes, negotiation." The Ilarian tilted their head, a gesture of curiosity and mild amusement. "All is in order." "Your armor, it is unique for such an event." Ilara's hands tightened on her gauntlets. "Unique." "It is standard issue battle armor." She looked down at herself, noticing for the first time the stark contrast between her metallic suit and the flowing ceremonial robes of the attendants. Her heart sank slightly. She had expected danger. She had not expected this. Before she could process further, music filled the air. It was unlike anything she had heard before, layered harmonies that seemed to rise and fall like the tides, carried on the wind as if the planet itself were singing. The attendants gestured toward a grand hall, its doors wide and open, adorned with hanging banners of gold and sapphire. Ilara hesitated, unsure of protocol. She had been trained for hostile encounters, not formal events with hundreds of alien dignitaries watching her every move. Nevertheless, she followed, stepping carefully into the hall. Her boots echoed loudly against the polished floor, drawing eyes. Whispers ran through the crowd. Humans in battle armor were rare, but humans attending royal functions in full armor, practically unheard of. The hall itself was enormous, stretching upward hundreds of meters. Floating platforms carried guests gracefully across the space, and holographic projections shimmered in the air, showing scenes of the Ilarian planet, its history, and its culture. At the center, a raised dais held the royal couple, regal figures bathed in light, smiling at the gathered guests. Ilara's visor slightly fogged from her nervous breath. She was in the middle of a wedding, fully armored and utterly conspicuous. She had misread the mission entirely. "Kira," she whispered, "I think we are in the wrong kind of danger." Kira leaned close, suppressing a laugh. I think you're in the wrong kind of party. Alara groaned but straightened her posture. She had a reputation to maintain. Humans were often underestimated in the galaxy. Here, she could show that humans were capable, even in situations that seemed ceremonial. Her first challenge came almost immediately. A young Ilarian child, tasked with carrying a ceremonial flame, tripped on the edge of a platform. The flame wavered dangerously close to the hanging banners above. Without thinking, Alara stepped forward, her armor clanking as she moved. With precision honed through countless drills, she reached the child and steadied both the flame and the small Ilarian. The crowd gasped, not in fear but in admiration. Here was a human fully armored, moving with strength, speed, and care. She had prevented what could have been a disaster and yet had not harmed a single soul. The royal couple exchanged a glance. The young crown prince's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "Humans," he whispered to his consort, "they are remarkable." Alara, finally catching her breath, realized that despite the embarrassment, she had made a strong first impression. She had assumed danger, but danger had found her anyway, in a way she had never expected. And in true human fashion, she had faced it head-on. As the ceremony continued, she navigated through the crowd, awkwardly trying to bow, step, and remain unobtrusive. The Ilarians seemed fascinated by her armor, by her confidence, and by her quick reflexes. They asked questions, and she answered honestly, explaining human technology, human traditions, and her own training. Her candidness, a human trait sometimes misunderstood in formal settings, was met with curiosity rather than offense. By the time the first dance began, Alara realized something remarkable. Humans could impress not with elegance, not with grace, but with courage, cleverness, and honesty. And though she had worn the wrong outfit, she had also worn the right attitude. As the music swelled, Alara glanced at Kira, who gave a small, encouraging nod. They had arrived thinking they would negotiate a treaty, perhaps face a crisis. Instead, they were witnesses to and protectors of something entirely different, a moment of celebration and unity. And in that moment, Alara understood a simple truth. Humans had a way of turning mistakes into opportunities. It was a lesson she would carry forward, long after the last toast had been made, long after the crowd had dispersed, and long after she finally removed her gleaming, imposing armor. Humanity's strength was not in what they wore, but in what they did, fearless, adaptable, and always ready to rise to the occasion. And as she looked toward the center of the hall, where the royal couple smiled, Alara Voss realized that sometimes the most unexpected missions were the ones that revealed the most about herself and about humanity. Captain Alara Voss followed the winding pathways of the royal hall, her battle armor clinking with every step. The grand hall was alive with movement, Ilarians floating gracefully from platform to platform, their robes glimmering under the soft, iridescent light. Humans were rare visitors here, and Alara knew every eye in the hall was on her. Some guests whispered, others stared openly, but all were curious. She had entered expecting danger, but now the danger was entirely social. Lieutenant Kira moved beside her, offering quiet guidance. "Remember, Captain," she whispered, "this is a celebration, not a battlefield." Alara grimaced. Celebrations were unfamiliar terrain. Diplomacy was something she could handle with protocol manuals and tactical simulations, but cultural celebrations were unpredictable. She could anticipate combat sequences, but not whether a misstep in a dance could cause offense. And with her heavy armor, even the simplest gestures were a challenge. A small group of attendants approached, their faces radiant with smiles. One, a tall Ilarian named Thalos, bowed deeply. "Captain Voss, you are invited to witness the ceremonial exchange of vows. Please come forward." Alara nodded stiffly, careful not to make any sudden movements. As she approached the dais, she realized how her armor made her awkward in this elegant environment. Sitting was impossible. Bending or kneeling was equally impractical. Even walking required calculated steps to avoid tripping or bumping into floating platforms. She felt conspicuous, like a walking monument of metal amidst silk and light. "Are you comfortable?" Kira asked quietly, a hint of amusement in her voice. Alara gave a tight-lipped smile. "I am always comfortable in armor. I just wish humans were a little less conspicuous." As the couple on the dais began the ritual, Alara noticed something curious. Ilarians had a tradition of symbolic movements, gestures meant to show respect, gratitude, or humility. They often extended a hand or bowed slightly, but in her armor, even the smallest gesture risked knocking over delicate artifacts. Yet, as she watched, she realized that the Alarians were not judging her awkwardness. They were fascinated by it. During one moment, a ceremonial orb floated toward the dais. It was meant to be caught lightly and passed to the next participant, but it wobbled in the air, caught in a slight current. Without thinking, Alara stepped forward, her gauntleted hands moving with precision. She caught the orb midair, holding it steady until the nearest attendant could receive it safely. A collective gasp rose from the crowd. Whispers of admiration floated around her. "The human, her reflexes," one attendee murmured. Alara lowered the orb and gave a small nod. "Humans are trained for precision," she said softly, not realizing that the entire hall had heard her. Some faces lit with respect, others with curiosity. She realized that her mistake in attire had unexpectedly showcased human skill. After the ritual, guests began to mingle. Alara tried to follow, weaving through the floating platforms, careful to maintain balance. She was stopped repeatedly. Some guests were fascinated by the reflective armor, others by the fact that a human could navigate the space without mishap. A small Ilarian child tugged at her cape, eyes wide. "You are strong," the child whispered. Alara smiled behind her visor. "Humans are adaptable," she said. "We learn quickly." This seemed to amuse the child, who giggled and ran off to show their friends. Alara noticed that her actions, simple, instinctive, unplanned, were teaching the aliens about humanity in ways no official diplomacy could. She was a living demonstration of adaptability, courage, and quick thinking. The young crown prince, observing her from the dais, leaned closer to his consort. "She is not like the others," he whispered. "She is remarkable." As the evening continued, Alara encountered more challenges. A ceremonial banner, suspended on a thin filament, began to sway dangerously near a floating platform. One wrong touch, and it could unravel, ruining the display. Alara assessed the situation quickly, calculating angles and forces in her mind. With careful steps and a controlled reach, she nudged the banner safely aside. Another murmured appreciation ran through the hall. Even the Alarian dignitaries, initially skeptical of humans' role in formal events, were beginning to notice something unexpected. Humans might appear rough or clumsy in elegance, but they were precise, resourceful, and capable of handling unpredictable situations without chaos. Alara's armor, once a source of embarrassment, was beginning to symbolize human ingenuity. Yet not all interactions were easy. Alara struggled with the etiquette of alien dining, the floating platters, and the ceremonial offerings. A delicate glass orb containing glowing liquid hovered toward her. She reached to accept it, but the weight of her gauntlet caused it to spin out of control. Quick thinking saved it before it crashed, but her clumsy approach drew a few chuckles. She bowed lightly, accepting the laughter as part of the cultural experience. Kira leaned close, whispering, "You're turning mistakes into opportunities, Captain. Humans do that well." Alara nodded. "It seems our unpredictability works in our favor." Then came the challenge of communication. The Alarians' language was melodic and complex. While translators helped, subtle meanings were often conveyed through tone and gesture. Alara struggled at first, her armor limiting nuanced body language. But she noticed that humans had another advantage: creativity. She used small demonstrations, drawing diagrams in the air with a hovering light device, showing strategies, ideas, and even humor. The Alarians responded with fascination. Humans did not need perfect fluency, they had ingenuity. At one point, an elder Alarian approached, handing her a ceremonial staff meant to symbolize wisdom. The staff was delicate, adorned with floating crystals. Alara paused, careful to hold it without applying too much pressure. When a slight tremor threatened to dislodge a crystal, she used a controlled adjustment to stabilize it. The elder's eyes widened and a smile spread across their face. "You understand," the elder said simply. Alara gave a small bow, her visor reflecting the soft light of the hall. "Humans learn fast," she said. The elder nodded slowly, then stepped back, leaving Alara feeling both proud and humbled. She had not been graceful, but she had been effective. And in this moment the lesson was clear. Humanity's strength did not lie in appearance or elegance. It lay in courage, resourcefulness, and the ability to adapt. As the evening grew later, music shifted to a slower, more intimate tone. Couples began to dance, moving gracefully through the air on floating platforms. Alara's armor made the idea of dancing impossible, yet she watched, studying the Alarian techniques. Perhaps, she thought, there was something to be learned here, not about combat or strategy, but about patience, timing, and observation. Even humans could find lessons in unexpected places. The crown prince descended from the dais, moving toward Alara with a polite bow. "Captain Voss," he said, voice carrying warmth, "you are unlike anyone I have met. Your presence changes the atmosphere." Alara straightened, feeling the weight of her armor in a new way. "I hope that humans are welcome, Your Highness." "We came expecting to assist in negotiations. Instead, I hope we have helped in other ways," the prince smiled. "You have helped more than you realize. Courage and quick thinking are valued by all of us. Elegance is fleeting. Strength, true strength, is enduring." Alara felt a sense of pride. Here she had come, expecting danger, and instead had revealed the essence of humanity to an entire civilization. She had stumbled, fumbled, and navigated awkward moments. And in doing so, humans had shown that they were adaptable, brave, and capable of handling the unpredictable. As the night drew on, Alara continued to assist where needed. She stabilized decorations, prevented accidents, and offered quiet guidance to both humans and aliens. Each action, small as it seemed, strengthened the bond between the two species. She realized that sometimes diplomacy was not about speeches or treaties. It was about action, presence, and proving oneself through deeds. By the end of the evening, the initial whispers of surprise had transformed into respect. Humans, the Alarians, were beginning to understand, were not fragile observers. They were capable participants. And while the captain's armor had seemed inappropriate at first, it had become a symbol of humanity's unexpected strengths: courage, adaptability, and the willingness to face the unknown without hesitation. Alara finally allowed herself a brief moment of rest, leaning against a polished column as she observed the celebrations. Kira joined her, carrying a tray of glowing, fruit-like delicacies. "You did well," Kira said softly. "Better than anyone could have expected." Alara allowed herself a small smile. "Sometimes," she said, "humans succeed not because we plan perfectly, but because we keep going. We adapt, we learn, we face whatever comes at us, even if it's a royal wedding we weren't expecting." And in that moment, Captain Alara Voss understood something fundamental. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but in unpredictability lay strength, in mistakes lay opportunity. And in courage, even amidst awkward circumstances, lay admiration, respect, and influence that could ripple across worlds. For the first time that evening, she felt at ease, not because danger had been absent, but because she realized that humanity's true power lay not in tools, weapons, or armor, but in the courage, intelligence, and adaptability of its people. The royal wedding continued, glittering with lights, music, and laughter. And Captain Alara Voss, fully armored and wholly human, moved through the crowd with growing confidence, knowing that she was not just a guest. She was a representative of Earth, showing that humans could thrive, adapt, and shine, even in the most unexpected of places. Celebration was in full swing. The royal hall shimmered with soft light, glowing orbs floating gracefully above platforms, and music weaving a tapestry of sound that seemed to dance in the very air. Captain Alara Voss moved carefully through the crowd, her battle armor catching faint reflections from the hanging crystals. Every movement she made, each calculated step, each slight turn of her head, was observed by humans and Ilarians alike. For most guests, the evening was a dream of beauty and elegance. But for Alara, trained to expect danger at every turn, the night held an unspoken tension. She had faced alien diplomacy, ceremonial customs, and delicate artifacts, but she had learned to expect the unexpected. And tonight, the unexpected arrived sooner than anyone anticipated. From the upper gallery, a subtle disturbance rippled through the air. A group of shadowy figures slipped silently among the guests, moving with unnatural precision. They were barely visible, blending with the flowing robes and ambient lighting, but Alara's trained eyes caught them immediately. Kira noticed her sudden stillness. "Captain, what is it?" Alara's visor tracked the figures as they approached the dais. "Something is wrong," she whispered. "Those aren't guests. Move carefully, stay close." The shadowy figures were armed, not with traditional weapons, but with strange devices that emitted pulses of light and vibration, capable of destabilizing floating platforms or interfering with delicate machinery. Their intention was clear, to disrupt the royal ceremony and cause chaos. Alara's mind raced. She had prepared for diplomacy, for minor threats, but never for an assault at a wedding. Yet instinct kicked in immediately. Her armor was more than protection. It was a tool of mobility, strength, and precision. "Stay calm," she told Kira. "We handle this quietly, no panic." The shadowy figures reached the central dais, aiming to interfere with the ceremonial crown, a symbol of unity and peace between alien clans. Alara acted. Without hesitation, she moved toward the intruders, her heavy boots clanking on the polished floor. Every eye followed her, some in fear, some in awe. Humans rarely intervened in alien events so boldly, and her presence alone commanded attention. With swift precision, she activated a stabilizing field from her gauntlet, creating a subtle wave that disrupted the intruders' devices. They faltered, stepping back as their carefully aimed tools failed to respond. Alara did not attack physically. She did not strike a single blow. Instead, she used her understanding of physics, timing, and balance to neutralize the threat. The crowd gasped. Humans, who often seemed small or fragile, could exert control over chaos with intelligence and skill. Her actions were subtle but effective, a perfect combination of strategy and courage. The intruders attempted a second move, rushing toward the crown. Alara anticipated their path and moved ahead, positioning herself strategically. Her armor amplified her strength and speed, allowing her to intercept the devices before they could reach their target. In a smooth motion, she deflected the tools, sending them harmlessly spinning into the air where attendants could retrieve them safely. The young crown prince watched from the dais, eyes wide with astonishment. "Captain Voss," he whispered to the queen beside him, "humans, they are not to be underestimated." Alara did not pause. She scanned the room, identifying exits, vulnerable areas, and the shadowy intruders' patterns. Each move she made was deliberate, turning potential disaster into order. She coordinated silently with Kira, who relayed information about guests and platform stability. Together, they created a human-alien defensive network, preventing anyone from being harmed. Finally, the intruders realized they could not succeed. Their plans, carefully crafted, were no match for human ingenuity and adaptability. With one final glance, they withdrew, disappearing into the shadows from which they had come. The hall remained safe, the ceremonial crown untouched, and the celebration uninterrupted. For a brief moment, silence filled the room. Then a wave of appreciation and astonishment rippled through the guests. Humans had defended the royal family without violence, without bloodshed, without destroying a single piece of the delicate ceremonial environment. They had used intelligence, quick reflexes, and careful observation to prevent disaster. The crown prince descended from the dais, moving toward Alara with measured steps. His gaze held both curiosity and respect. "Captain Voss," he said, voice steady, "you have shown us a strength we did not expect. Humans, you think differently, you act differently. And in that difference lies power." Alara nodded, lowering her visor slightly to reveal a small smile. "Our strength," she said softly, "comes from our ability to adapt. We learn quickly and we face challenges head-on. That is all we have ever known." The prince's eyes gleamed. "It is clear to me now, you are not merely guests. You are potential allies. Humans are unpredictable, yet capable of incredible things." Alara allowed herself a small sigh of relief. The danger had passed, but the lesson was clear. In that moment, humans had demonstrated that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. And intelligence, combined with adaptability, could overcome threats far larger than size or weaponry alone would suggest. As the evening continued, guests approached Alara with newfound respect. Some asked about human tactics, some about technology, others simply marveled at her ability to move through the chaos with such confidence. Even the most skeptical dignitaries who had questioned humanity's role in this ceremonial space now looked at humans as capable and clever, worthy of admiration and collaboration. Kira leaned close, whispering, "You didn't just save the ceremony, Captain. You changed how they see us, completely." Alara nodded. "It seems humans are always most respected when we rise to challenges no one else expects." The royal couple, noticing her contributions, invited her to stand closer to the dais for the remainder of the ceremony. She did so cautiously, mindful of her armor and the delicate environment. From this position, she could observe, assist, and act if needed, always ready, always aware. Later, during the formal toasts, Alara noticed the effect her actions had on both humans and Alarians. The younger aliens whispered among themselves, pointing toward her armor, discussing the way humans had handled the threat. Elders nodded knowingly, understanding that humanity's strength lay not only in technology, but in clever thinking, courage, and adaptability. A young Alarian approached her, wide-eyed and curious. "Your armor, it is heavy, yet you move with precision. How?" Alara crouched slightly, her visor lowering to meet the alien's gaze. "We practice, we train, we learn to turn every tool we have into an advantage. Humans, we never give up, we adapt." The alien's eyes glimmered. "It is remarkable, humans, you are clever." The Crown Prince returned to her side, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Captain Voss, humans are not just clever, you are brave, you are wise. And you have earned our respect tonight, not through ceremony, not through ritual, but through action." Alara's chest swelled with quiet pride. Humans had arrived expecting danger and found it, not in the form of battle, but in the form of disruption, subtle and insidious. And humans had met it with intelligence and courage, showing that their true power was not weapons or strength, but mind and heart combined. The evening drew on, and the wedding continued without further interruption. Music and celebration returned, laughter and conversation filling the hall. Alara assisted quietly where needed, offering subtle guidance to humans and aliens alike. Every action she took was noted, studied, and appreciated. By the end of the night, a pattern had emerged. Humans, though often underestimated, were capable of extraordinary feats. Their ingenuity, adaptability, and courage allowed them to succeed where others might fail. And while Alara's armor had first seemed out of place, it had become a symbol, not of aggression, but of human resourcefulness, readiness, and determination. Finally, when the last dance concluded, the Crown Prince turned to Alara. "Captain Voss, humanity has proven itself tonight, not just to us but to everyone present. You have earned a place among friends and perhaps something greater. Humans, you are unpredictable yet extraordinary, never forget that." Alara bowed slightly, her visor reflecting the soft glow of the ceremonial lights. "I will remember, Your Highness, and we will continue to learn, adapt, and rise to every challenge. That is the way of humans." As she stepped away from the dais, Kira at her side, Alara realized something profound. The mission she had expected, diplomatic negotiation under threat, had transformed into a demonstration of humanity itself. Humans were clever, brave, adaptable, and resilient. They could face danger, whether on a battlefield or in a ceremony, and rise above it. And so, as the hall emptied and the stars shone brightly above Novra Prime, Captain Alara Voss understood a truth she would carry forever. Humans may be unpredictable, but in that unpredictability lay their greatest strength. The morning after the wedding arrived with a calm. Golden light spilling across the floating city of Novra Prime. The royal halls, now quiet, seemed almost serene compared to the previous night's grandeur and tension. Captain Alara Voss adjusted her battle armor one last time as she walked through the corridors with Lieutenant Kira, ready to meet with the Crown Prince and other leaders. Though the immediate threat at the wedding had passed, Alara knew the events of the night had left an impression. Humans, she realized, had shown a strength that extended beyond combat skills, an intelligence, adaptability, and courage that had begun to reshape how the Alarians perceived them. Today, the focus was not on celebrations, but on building relationships and understanding. The Crown Prince greeted them in a smaller chamber, a room adorned with floating crystal panels that displayed images of the planet's history, culture, and achievements. He smiled as Alara entered, his gaze filled with both curiosity and respect. "Captain Voss," he began, "last night you demonstrated the qualities that our people value most: quick thinking, courage, and care. I would like to understand humans better, not as guests, but as partners." Alara inclined her head. "We are honored, Your Highness." Humans believe in learning, in adapting, and in finding solutions, even under unexpected circumstances. The prince nodded thoughtfully. "I would like you to assist us today in preparing for the next ceremonial event. It is a display of unity for visiting dignitaries. It requires precision, coordination, and adaptability. I think you and your people could provide guidance." Alara exchanged a glance with Kira. "We would be happy to help," she said. "Humans thrive on challenges, especially when teamwork is involved." As they moved through the city, Alara observed the floating platforms and intricate mechanisms that made the city function. Every platform, every light, every holographic projection required careful calibration. Even a slight misstep could cause instability, yet the Alarians moved with practiced grace. Humans, by contrast, were not familiar with such delicate systems, but they were fast learners. Alara immediately began coordinating efforts. She identified potential weak points, suggested minor adjustments to platform weight distribution, and demonstrated safe movement patterns for humans unfamiliar with the environment. She used clear, logical explanations, showing how even small adjustments could prevent accidents or delays. The Alarians were fascinated. They had seen humans in battle situations, but now they observed humans working methodically, applying intelligence and strategy to a complex, delicate problem. Every correction, every suggestion, every small success was noted and appreciated. During one moment, a group of young Alarians struggled to stabilize a ceremonial light array. A sudden gust of wind threatened to topple it. Without hesitation, Alara stepped forward, her armor providing balance and strength. She caught the array, stabilized it with careful movements, and set it in position. The crowd of observers murmured in admiration. Humans, who had been underestimated in elegance and ceremony, had proven that they could handle challenges others could not. Alara's armor, once a source of awkwardness, had become a symbol of capability. The crown prince watched from a distance, clearly impressed. "Humans," he whispered to a nearby advisor, "they are clever and precise. They see solutions where others see problems." As the day progressed, Alara's presence began to inspire both humans and aliens. She organized small teams, pairing humans with Alarians, ensuring that everyone understood their roles and worked together. Her leadership emphasized observation, communication, and adaptability. During a rehearsal for the next ceremony, a sudden technical problem arose. A floating platform carrying delicate crystals began to wobble dangerously. Alarms blared softly and attendants froze. Alara acted immediately. She calculated the platform's trajectory, determined the weight distribution required to stabilize it, and directed two nearby Alarians to make the necessary adjustments. Using her armor to support the platform temporarily, she maintained balance until the corrections were made. The crystals remained intact and the platform was safe. The crowd erupted into applause, not for brute strength, but for intelligence and swift action. Humans, once underestimated, had shown their unique combination of courage, logic, and adaptability. The Crown Prince approached Alara afterward. "Captain, your actions today do more than solve problems. They demonstrate humanity's approach to challenges. Calm, thoughtful, and effective. Our people will remember this." Alara smiled. "We believe that every challenge is an opportunity. Humans do not fear failure. They adapt, learn, and improve." By mid-afternoon, the ceremony was ready to begin. Guests arrived from across Nova Prime and beyond, eager to witness the display of unity. The floating platforms were in position, the holographic displays active, and every detail carefully arranged. Alara moved among the guests, observing. She noted subtle tensions, miscommunications, timing issues, minor hesitations, and quietly offered guidance. Her input was subtle but effective, preventing potential mistakes before they occurred. During one crucial moment, the main ceremonial structure, a massive floating crystal arch, showed signs of instability. The support filaments vibrated slightly, threatening to shift out of alignment. Alara's eyes narrowed. She analyzed the structure, considering angles, forces, and counterweights. With calm precision, she adjusted two support filaments manually while directing assistants to stabilize the remaining points. The arch steadied perfectly. The ceremony proceeded without a single flaw. Observers whispered in admiration, impressed by humans' foresight and skill. The Crown Prince approached once more. "Captain Voss, humans are remarkable. Your people's adaptability and intelligence are unmatched. We often rely on tradition and ceremony, but humans, you see possibilities." Alara inclined her head. "We value learning, observation, and teamwork. Challenges are opportunities to improve and to understand. That is the way humans think." By evening, the ceremony was complete. Guests applauded, and dignitaries approached Alara to express gratitude. She accepted each acknowledgement humbly, aware that humans had not only helped the event succeed, they had also forged respect and admiration among an entire civilization. Kira leaned close. Captain, look at them. They respect us now. They admire us. And it's not just for our technology, it's for us humans. Alara nodded slowly. Exactly, Kira. Humans do not just survive, they inspire. Even when our methods seem unusual, our results speak for themselves. Later, the Crown Prince invited her and Kira to a private chamber. He smiled warmly. Captain, humanity has earned trust here today. Your actions have demonstrated something rare, that intelligence, courage, and adaptability can influence even the most established civilizations. You have turned a simple mission into a turning point. Alara felt a sense of pride and responsibility. Humans had been underestimated, yet they had proven themselves through action. And this influence, she realized, could extend far beyond a single wedding or ceremony. The galaxy, the prince continued, is filled with challenges. But humans, you do not follow the expected path. You find solutions others overlook. You inspire confidence through courage and thoughtfulness. That is why your presence is invaluable. Alara smiled. We will continue to learn, adapt, and help where we can. That is the human way. As the night fell over Novara Prime, the stars reflecting off the floating city like scattered jewels, Alara stood on a balcony, looking out over the celebration below. The ceremony had been a success, yes, but more importantly, humans had shown that intelligence, courage, and adaptability could change perceptions, create respect, and forge alliances. Kira joined her, handing her a cup of warm liquid that glowed softly in the night. You did it, Captain. You turned a wedding into a lesson in humanity. Alara took a sip, watching the city lights dance. Sometimes, she said, the most unexpected missions are the ones that teach the most, and sometimes humans shine brightest when no one expects it. Below, the Alarians continued their festivities, unaware of how much they had learned about a species that, at first glance, seemed fragile or ordinary. Through subtle action, intelligence, and bravery, humans had proven their worth in ways no words could convey. Alara felt a quiet satisfaction. Humans were adaptable, clever, and resilient. They could rise to challenges, protect the vulnerable, and inspire respect, all without resorting to violence. And in that realization lay the essence of human-focused humanity, the HFY she had come to understand deeply. As she prepared to rest, knowing the next day would bring new responsibilities, Alara made a mental note. Humans had not only survived the ceremonies, they had changed minds, hearts, and perceptions. And this was only the beginning. Tomorrow, the galaxy might present other challenges. But tonight, humans had shown that courage, intelligence, and adaptability could turn even the most difficult situation into a triumph. And Captain Alara Voss, in her shining armor, had led the way. The morning sun cast a warm glow over Novara Prime, painting the floating city in hues of gold and sapphire. Captain Alara Voss stood on a high platform, her battle armor gleaming in the light. Though it had been polished and worn for years, today it felt different, less like a tool of protection and more like a symbol of humanity itself. Humans were no longer outsiders here. They were respected allies, admired for their courage, ingenuity, and adaptability. Lieutenant Kira approached, carrying a data pad filled with messages from the guests of the previous day. Captain, she said, her voice tinged with excitement, they're requesting a human-led demonstration of problem-solving for future events. They want humans to train their teams in adaptability, creativity, and decision-making. Alara raised an eyebrow, a small smile forming beneath her visor. They've realized what humans excel at, thinking in ways that aren't always predictable and acting decisively when others hesitate. We'll do it, Kira, but it's more than training. It's about sharing the human approach to challenges. The Crown Prince arrived, accompanied by advisors and dignitaries. He looked at Alara with a mixture of admiration and pride. Captain Voss, he said, humans have changed our perception of your species. We have witnessed courage, quick thinking, and resourcefulness, qualities that are rare and valuable. We wish to formalize a human-Alarian alliance. Your people will be our partners, teachers, and friends. Alara nodded, understanding the significance. A formal alliance with Novara Prime could open doors for humanity across the stars. But more importantly, it reflected a deeper truth. Humans were respected not for brute strength or ceremony, but for intellect, courage, and adaptability. Your Highness, she said, humans honor trust and collaboration. We will share knowledge, skills, and strategies, but always with respect for your culture and traditions. That is how humans work. The prince's smile widened. Then we are united, Captain. Humanity and Novara Prime, partners in intelligence, courage, and creativity. Over the next few days, Alara worked alongside the Alarians, demonstrating human problem-solving in a variety of complex situations. They practiced navigation of floating platforms, coordinated large ceremonial structures, and simulated unexpected challenges, all with humans guiding and advising. The Alarians learned quickly, but more importantly, they learned the human way: observe carefully, plan thoughtfully, act decisively, and adapt when needed. During one exercise, a simulation went awry. A large ceremonial platform began to tilt dangerously. Panic rippled through the alien attendants. Alara assessed the situation, identifying the imbalance and the structural points that required adjustment. With precise movements, she stabilized the platform, then coordinated with Alarian assistants to correct the weight distribution. Not a single piece of equipment was damaged. The observing crowd erupted in applause. "Humans think differently," an elder Alarian remarked. "They see solutions where we see only problems." Alara smiled behind her visor. "Humans do not fear mistakes. We learn from them, and we never stop adapting." Word of humanity's abilities spread quickly. Diplomats from neighboring systems requested audiences with Alara and her team, eager to witness human methods firsthand. Humans were no longer seen as fragile observers. They were innovators, problem-solvers, and leaders. And Alara realized that this was the true essence of HFY: humanity earning respect through intelligence, courage, and creativity. One evening, as the twin suns set over Novara Prime, the Crown Prince invited Alara to the royal balcony. Below, the floating city glittered like a sea of stars, and the people moved gracefully through their routines. "Captain Voss," he said, "your people have left a mark on our civilization, not through force, not through ceremony, but through action, ingenuity, and courage. Humans inspire. You have taught us that strength comes in many forms." Alara nodded, feeling the weight of her armor and its symbolism. "We honor trust and collaboration, Your Highness, and we hope that the respect we earn today will strengthen bonds for generations to come." The prince's gaze was steady. "It will, and I believe your people will continue to do so across the galaxy. Humans adapt, humans learn, and humans rise to challenges that others cannot. That is why your legacy will endure, not only here but everywhere humanity reaches." In the days that followed, humans and Alarians worked together to create a series of initiatives. Humans shared strategies for problem-solving under uncertainty, techniques for creative thinking, and methods for coordinating teams in complex situations. The Alarians, in turn, shared knowledge of their technology, history, and philosophy. Together, they built a network of collaboration and mutual respect. Alara watched with pride as humans demonstrated patience, innovation, and courage. Even in situations that required delicate handling, humans adapted quickly. Tasks that seemed impossible at first, balancing floating structures, coordinating complex rituals, managing unexpected disruptions, were completed smoothly under human guidance. During one particularly challenging simulation, a sudden energy fluctuation caused a holographic projection to malfunction. The projection was critical for the ceremony, showing the history of Novara Prime. Chaos seemed imminent, but Alara quickly analyzed the system, identified the source of the problem, and guided a team to correct it. The projection resumed flawlessly, and the observers cheered. "Humans see the solution," the Crown Prince said quietly, "where others see only failure." Alara smiled. "We believe that every challenge is an opportunity to learn, grow, and improve. That is how humans thrive." Word of humanity's accomplishments spread across the galaxy. The news traveled to distant systems, where leaders marveled at the tales of humans navigating alien customs, solving complex problems, and inspiring civilizations through intelligence and courage. Humans were recognized not as conquerors, but as innovators, thinkers, and allies. The final ceremony of the Alliance was held in the Grand Hall of Novara Prime. Humans and Alarians stood together, united by respect and shared accomplishments. Captain Alara Voss, fully armored, was at the center, representing Earth and humanity. The Crown Prince approached, holding a ceremonial emblem of partnership. "Captain Voss," he said, "this symbol represents trust, unity, and respect between our peoples. Humanity has earned our admiration through courage, intelligence, and adaptability. Wear it with pride as a testament to the strength of your species. Alara accepted the emblem, her visor reflecting the light of the Grand Hall. We are honored, Your Highness, and we will continue to earn trust through action, ingenuity, and collaboration. Humanity will never cease to adapt, to learn, and to rise to every challenge. The crowd erupted in applause. Humans had not only participated in a ceremony, they had changed the perception of an entire civilization. They had shown that true strength lay in courage, intelligence, and adaptability. Their resourcefulness had forged trust, respect, and lasting bonds across the stars. That night, as the stars glimmered above the city, Alara stood with Kira, looking over the floating platforms and the illuminated streets below. "Kira," she said, "humans have shown that it's not just weapons or technology that make us strong. It's our mind, our courage, and our ability to adapt. That is our true legacy," Kira nodded. "And we've proven it to the galaxy. Humans inspire, Captain. They respect what we can do, not because we plan perfectly, but because we act decisively, learn quickly, and rise to every challenge." Alara smiled. "Then we continue, Kira. Tomorrow and every day after, humans will meet the unknown with courage and intelligence. That is our way. That is the way of Earth." As she turned from the balcony, the weight of her armor no longer felt burdensome. It was a symbol of what humans represented: preparedness, resilience, and adaptability. Humanity had left a mark on Nova Prime and would leave a mark across the galaxy. The next day, humans were invited to consult with diplomats, scientists, and leaders from neighboring systems. They shared knowledge, strategies, and approaches to problem-solving, earning admiration wherever they went. Humans were no longer just explorers or visitors. They were teachers, leaders, and innovators. And though Captain Alara Voss had arrived expecting a simple mission, she realized she had become part of something far greater. She had not only navigated a royal wedding in armor, but had shown the universe what humanity could accomplish. From that day forward, humans were no longer underestimated. Their courage, intelligence, and adaptability became known throughout the stars. They were respected as capable allies, valued for more than technology or strength. Humans had proven themselves in ways that words could not capture, through action, thought, and ingenuity. And as Captain Alara Voss looked out over the glowing city one last time before departing, she knew this truth was universal. Humanity's legacy was not just survival or victory. It was inspiration. It was adaptability. It was courage in the face of the unexpected. And it would endure wherever humans journeyed, whatever challenges they faced, and however far the stars might stretch. The galaxy had learned, through the actions of a single human in battle armor at a royal wedding, that humanity was extraordinary. And the story of Captain Alara Voss would be told for generations, a shining example of human-focused humanity, HFY in its purest form.